Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are back on F1 23. And in today's video, hopefully this is going to be a bit of a useful one for you. And if you do enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a like. Actually lets me know that this is something you want to see and it is actually of some use to you. And that is going to be discussing 5 reasons why you potentially suck at F1 23 and why you can't win online. And despite you being quick in time trial, you still can't really convert them to results, whether it's league racing or really just online gameplay in general. So I'm actually planning to potentially do this style video for every single track. So basically record myself winning on every single track online, giving you the setup, letting you know how I do it, talking about specific corners, things like that. So I actually think that's probably going to be a little bit more useful than just a hot lap and setup, because I've said it many times before, it's not that it's easy, but there are hundreds, if not thousands of people who can do a very good lap over one lap. It's about putting it together when it counts, especially when you're doing competitive racing or you just want to be the best driver possible online. So we're going to go over 5 things here, and let me know if you agree. Let me know if you think there are any other things that you would consider as well. But I think the first thing, and this is something I mention a lot in my online coaching, one-to-one coaching at www.coachlimitless.com, is understanding the fundamentals. And what I mean by that specifically is understanding what the game does reward versus what the game doesn't reward. And I think the latter is probably a bit more significant and important, because I think there are a lot of drivers out there who are maybe 1 to 2 seconds away from a world record, and they feel like they're pushing an 8 or a 9 out of 10 lap. And in reality, it shouldn't feel like it's a 9 out of 10 lap if you're 2 seconds away from the world record. So understanding the use of momentum, not overusing the inputs, learn to be efficient with the inputs, trying to keep your wheel as straight as you possibly can. Because believe it or not, if you look at the telemetry between an esports driver and potentially someone who's maybe 2-3 seconds away, the esports driver is actually doing less braking at a higher percentage, trail braking more effectively, being smoother on the throttle, so not as early on the power, because already are carrying enough momentum into the corners. So if this is something you'd like me to go into quite a bit of detail on, maybe a whole video on the use of fundamentals and momentum. If not, if you sign up to my coaching at www.coachlimitless.com, this is something I always go through with drivers on their very first session. I think it's probably one of the most important aspects as well. Secondly, I think is understanding ERS management for each track. So knowing what track requires how much battery to use per lap, when to use it, where to use it. Because I think we've all experienced playing online, especially in 5-lappers and 25% non-league races pretty much, that a lot of drivers really like to spam their battery at all costs, no matter what the circumstance is, whether it's the first lap, second lap, they will just use all their ERS and not really managing it that effectively. So I think learning to really work on your raw pace, which is kind of links with the fundamentals, so really trying to get as fast as you can without the ERS means you actually don't have to use as much as that ERS. And we know how powerful the overtake button is in this game. Even if you're running the same wings, or very different wings to someone else, if they're using the ERS button, it's actually going to be very, very difficult to overtake them. So I think ERS management is particularly for league racing, and if you want to be as strong and competitive as a driver as possible, learning when to use your battery and kind of just being a lot more disciplined when you're using batteries. So you can see here, we're using it now because I know I really need to try and at least be in second place. You don't want to be the third man in the DRS train. So using it again here just to try and solidify that position. But then for the rest of this race, I don't really use it that much at all until I really need to. Number 3 would be really matching your pedal inputs to your steering. And I think this is something a lot of drivers don't particularly think about that much. As you see, if you go through corners such as this, you see on the screen now, really watch how the throttle on braking really matches the steering wheel. So my throttle doesn't actually increase until my wheel unwinds. And this is something, again, I say in my coaching over and over again, you really want to imagine that your pedal inputs are very much interconnected with whatever your steering is doing. So whether the wheel's straight, you're probably going to have a maximum input, whether that's on the brake or the throttle. But then once the wheel turns, that's where it really needs to kind of calibrate. So for the throttle specifically, unless your wheel is moving in the exit of corner, once it starts to unwind, you want to imagine the more you go down on the throttle, a magnet is automatically trying to drag your wheel back to the center. And the throttle application shouldn't really be moving much faster than the speed that your wheel is moving back towards the center, aka being straight. Obviously, the more momentum you carry, the more aggressive you can be on this throttle input. But the thing I see the most from people is that they are tending to really overuse the throttle, moving it much faster than what the wheel's doing, and because you're still turning quite a lot and probably killing too much speed, not carrying enough momentum, it makes the traction so much more difficult. Effectively, you just put yourself in a spin quite often as well. The fourth thing I would say is having a good car setup, and I don't mean just taking this from the time trial, I mean actually understanding how car setups work, because at the end of the day, there is no such thing as a perfect setup. There is no such thing as a perfect balance. You can't have the perfect level of downforce and rotation for every single corner. You've really got to understand what works for you. But again, I think it's very important to really understand the fundamentals first and really trying to maximize your raw speed as much as you can. Because again, in coaching sessions I have, a lot of drivers are maybe 2-3 seconds away. They kind of fall into the trap of changing the setup to make it more stable instead of learning to be a lot more smoother, a lot more efficient with their inputs. Because they're changing the setup to try and kind of cater to that, they end up doing the incorrect muscle memory and developing unoptimal driving habits. So I think it's really important to maximize fundamentals first, because I say if you can't get within a second of someone using the same setup, no matter what kind of lap time they've done or where they are on the leaderboard, then there probably is a lot more to come from you. It's the same for me. If I can't get within a second or even half a second of an esports driver, then I kind of keep going back setup until I learn the fundamentals, learn to be smooth, carrying the right momentum. And once I get it within that range, half a second to a few tenths, that's when I don't mind making some adjustments to really kind of suit my driving style just that little bit more. So I wouldn't be in so much of a rush to change all the settings just because it feels difficult. Really try and work on yourself first and really start to understand the car setups. And you can watch my video, the setup explanation, you can watch other people's videos, but I also think sometimes a bit of trial and error in the time trial Grand Prix mode. You know, change the opposite values of certain things such as the suspension, the roll bar, differential, to really get an understanding and feel of what is actually happening with the car. That's really going to help you really learn the most, in my opinion. And I think the fifth thing, especially for online and league racing, and something a lot of people don't do, is, believe it or not, actually just thinking ahead. So just being a bit smarter with your decisions. Like you've seen here, we're not so desperate to be in the lead of the race because we know we've got a lap to go. I'm the third man in the DRS train now, so you see now I'm going to be using all of this ERS because it's very important that I'm at least, if not leading, need to be minimum in second place going to a last lap, which kind of leads again to the point of the ERS management, and that's a big thing. But again, sometimes there's a time and place where you need to be a bit conservative, a bit more aggressive, and yeah, just thinking ahead of the race. So try and treat it like a game of chess. You don't want to be thinking just corner by corner, lap by lap. Sometimes it's, especially if you're in a league race, just thinking about what this decision will be, whether you pit on this lap in relation to the gap of other drivers. This is something you experience when playing 5-lappers online. This is what really taught me how to manage myself, because again, I think there are a lot of drivers out there who are very, very good at the time trial. There's many drivers who are much, much better than me at the time trial, but then when it comes to the race, even though I'm not faster or more pace, just because I've learned the fundamentals, I've learned how to manage my ERS, really being aware of my inputs, having a good race car setup, one I know that's going to adapt well to the changing conditions of the tyre wear, the tyre temperatures and the fuel levels, and then copy that with just thinking about 5-10 laps from now. If I use all my ERS here, am I going to be able to recover enough for the end of the race? Or if I make this move here, is it really going to benefit me? These are the kind of questions you need to be asking yourself, and I think really does separate the good drivers from the very, very good, if not the great drivers. And you can see this race here, there's a bit of an example of that. I've been able to save my ERS into the last lap, see the guys behind me running out, having a good setup that's very good in a straight line, knowing where to be aggressive, knowing where to be committed, but also a bit conservative. And you can see that has paid off very, very well. So let me know if this is a series you'd like me to do for every track, how to win at every single track. Literally just doing videos like this where you get to see my setup. If you'd like access to this setup, make sure you click that join button. You can also be part of these lobbies, which I will be doing quite a bit over the Christmas period. You also get to talk to me directly, get a discount on coaching, and I haven't got too many coaching sessions left for the end of this year, so if you'd like a 90-minute session with me, make sure you head over to www.coachdemos.com, and it'd be a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you very, very soon. Peace.